Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss the major amendments in Budget 2022 which happens in indirect taxation in just 5 minutes. So without wasting any time, let's get started. So let's get started with the first amendment. The first amendment is in section 16. What section 16 says, a proviso has been inserted that no ITC shall be availed if the ITC has been restricted under section 38. Section 38 basically talks about your GSTR 2B. This means if your ITC is not appearing in GSTR 2B, then you cannot avail the said ITC. The next point says that the condition to avail ITC only if the return has been filed in terms of section 43A has been done away. This concept was of GSTR 2A. That is, if you GSTR 2, you have, this concept talks about the earlier concept in which there was GSTR 1, GSTR 2 and GSTR 3, which you have to approve in your all the invoices of the supplier you have to approve in your GSTR 2. This concept has been done away because you know that GSTR 2 was not at all successful in filing. The next point says that the last date for filing input tax credit has been extended to November 30. Earlier it was from the due date of the filing of the September return, that is your GSTR 3B. So an additional of 41 days have been provided by the government to file your return. This is quite a welcome step by the government as it helps the businesses to forgive the businesses to reconcile their returns as they are getting additional 41 days, and usually the books of the accounts are closed during 30th November only. So in order to align and in order to in order to approve the decisions of the majority of the people, the government has made such an amendment. Next amendment, we are talking about the cancellation or the suspension of the GST registration, in which they have given more powers to the commissioner or the officer to cancel the registration in certain cases. First, they have talked about the composite taxpayer. For composite taxpayer, they are saying that if you not file the return for the 3 consecutive months, then your registration will be cancelled. As you already know that the composite taxpayer has to file an annual return, so this has been done to make in align with that, to specify registration would be cancelled if return is not filed by the 3 months from the due date of such annual return. Further, the CBIC may prescribe the period of continuous non-filing of return of other taxpayer, means the regular taxpayer, when their registration will be cancelled, means a set of new guidelines will be issued in this case. Next, this change has been brought to punish the defaulters who are not filing their return. So the intention of the government is to punish the defaulters with the insertion of these provisions in the section. An amendment has been made in section 34. Section 34 talks about the debit and the credit note. An additional 41 days have been provided by the government, that is, you can now issue your debit and credit notes till 30th of November, which was earlier from the due date of the September return, that is your GSTR 3B return, which is it is you can issue all your credit notes till 20th of October. So the government has provided you an additional 41 days to make that adjustment. This has been done because the books of the accounts are usually finalized on 30th of September, and to provide additional timeline to the assessee to get their books aligned with the GST returns, the government has provided an additional timeline, and this is again a welcome change by the current government. Another change has been brought by the government in section 37. The time limit for making any changes in the outward supplies has been increased to the 30th of November. This is again a welcome change by the government, as it is providing an additional timeline to the assessor to rectify any error which have been made in the outward supplies. Along with it, a new subsection has been inserted to provide tax period wise sequential filing of the details of the outward supplies. It means GST of previous return have to be filed before that, and government has with the substitution of the section 38, the two-way communication which was earlier happening, that is you have to approve your GST or 2A in the turnover, has also been done away with. And another is happening is that you have to file the details of any previous tax period before filing the return of the current tax period. So this is not a new point, this is practically happening in GST, means I have to file the September month return before filing the return of the October month. So yeah, this is the practical thing which is happening. So let's get to the other slide. Section 38 of the GST Act has been completely substituted. It provides some additional conditions for the availment of the credit, and the credit cannot increase the amount of the credit which is generated in the auto generated statement, that is GSTR 2B. So all the ITC has to be availed as per this statement only. So government is getting more and more stringent towards the claiming of the input tax credit. Earlier the limit was 20% of the eligible ITC, then it reduced it to the 10%, then 5%, and then 0. So government is again and again putting more pressure on the ITC side, that is the government, with the intention that if I not get the money, I will not give the credit. With this intention, the government is making ITC provisions more and more stringent. So let's get on to the next slide. So the due date of the filing of the return of the NRTP has been prescribed as 13th of the next month, in which they have the two options: either to pay the tax on the self-assessed basis or to pay the tax at the amount prescribed. So this type of treatment we have somewhat seen in the QRMP scheme. Then they have the option to file the rectification by the 30th of the November. Along with it, if any Along with it, government has prescribed that the GSTR 3B cannot be filed till the time GSTR 1 is filed. So first you have to file the GSTR 1, and then only you will be able to file GSTR 3B. So let's just run to the next slide. So the next, government has made amendment in section 41, which states that the ITC will not be availed on a provisional basis. Instead, they will be required to avail the ITC on self-assessment basis. Further, they have made the changes that no ITC shall be availed if the supplier has not paid the tax. It doesn't mean that you cannot avail the tax for lifetime. As soon as the supplier will pay the tax, the buyer can avail the ITC. So this is something, I would say, a litigative issue, because in the earlier tax regime also it was allowed that the seller should be penalized for not paying the tax, not the buyer. Buyer should get the ITC because the buyer has rightfully paid the ITC to the supplier, so the buyer should get the ITC. So it is a kind of a litigative issue. We have the DVAT judgment in our favor also. So I guess this issue will be challenged in later on in Supreme Court. So let's see what happens. Let's move on to next slide with this. The government has done away the two-way communication, that is your GSTR 2 and your GSTR 3 returns, which was earlier there, in which if the supplier has not filed the return or has not shown your details, you can yourself submit the details on the GSTR 2 portal and the matching will happen in GSTR 3. This concept has been done away with. So it is a kind of a issue that you will not be able to avail the credit if your supplier fails to deposit the tax to the government. So your ITC will get lapsed. So this is again a litigative issue. As I mentioned earlier, we have favorable case law also that the buyer should not be penalized and the supplier should be penalized in this case. So let's move on to the next slide. Late fee has been prescribed for the GSTR 8 return, that is your TCS return. There is no more amendment in this section. So without further ado, let's move to next slide. Government has made some amendment in the transfer of the amount in the ACL to a distinct person. It basically means that if you have a balance in CGST and you don't have any your unpaid liability, so you can transfer this CGST amount to your CGST or the IGST balance in your another entity. Means the entity having the same PAN, your distinct person entity. Means I am doing business in Mumbai and I am doing business in Delhi as well. I have a credit in Mumbai which is accumulated of 1 crore, whereas I am having a liability in Delhi of 50 lakhs. So what can I do? I can transfer 50 lakhs from my Mumbai branch to my Delhi branch, so that the Delhi branch can utilize the ITC and my net outflow is only of 50 lakhs. So it will help in getting me more working capital. So it is again a welcome change by the government. Along with it, the government has given a backing to the 1% limit which the government has prescribed earlier, that for some certain taxpayers they have to pay the 1% tax liability in cash. So the government has given some legal backing to that, because earlier issue was rising where it was written that this 1% has to be paid in cash in the act. So the government has given legal backing in through this subsection. Let's move on to the government has made certain amendments to the section 50. The amendment is that if an ITC have been availed and wrongly utilized then only you have to pay tax at the rate 18%, and this amendment has been brought retrospectively. Earlier it was not clearly written in the act, and the same is was held in the GST Council meeting, and the same was held in the same conclusion was held in the Patna High Court as well, that the IT should always be, that the interest should always be implied on the ITC which have been availed and utilized, not on the ITC which only I have availed and it is I am not utilizing that ITC. Along with levy of late fee on the TCS returns, they have also extended the timeline for their rectification also. That is again government favoring the 30th November due date. They have extended the time limit of making all the amendments to the period 30th November. This is the favorite due date of the government right now. The government has made certain amendment in section 54 which pertains to refund. The government will provide some detailed guidelines to claim any balance in the ECL which can be claimed as an refund in your cash bank which is appearing in the electronic cash ledger. The time limit for filing of refund application for certain class of persons such as the specialized agencies of the United Nations or the multifunctional institution shall be the last day of the quarter in which the such supplies was made. The time limit has also been increased to 2 years of all the inward supplies of goods and services which are covered under section 55, and some other amendments would also have been made in section 54. As the section 38 gets removed or amended, all the instructions or all the directions issued in this regard issued by the government has also been removed. So this was the end of the slide. So with this we have covered the key changes in the indirect taxation, and in case of any doubt you can mail me at insidetaxation2020@gmail.com, and I will be pleased to address your issue or to guide you in the right direction. Thank you everyone.